Boy, Tel Aviv Levin he's big mad. Oh, he's big mad. Big mad because he didn't, as a spokesperson, as a spokesmodel for a foreign nation, they didn't get what they want. President Trump, and you saw why Bibi can't be trusted, and Netanyahu can't be trusted.
And that was Steve Bannon taking it to Mark Levin. Tel Aviv Levin is what he's calling him now. Marina's a really big fan of Steve Bannon. She loves his hair. She's told me, if Bannon asked me out for dinner, we'd have a problem. I said, yeah, I completely understand that. He's got a really impressive head of hair. He also has a really tremendous podcast. He's got pretty good access to the president as well. But he has really been going at it on social media back and forth with Mark Levin. As I've said, there's been this division among Republicans, the neocon wing of the Republican Party and the non-neocon wing of the Republican Party. The gloves are off, and they are really going at it. You've got on one side people like Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, Bill Crystal, almost said Billy, Bill Crystal, and on the other side you've got Steve Bannon, and you've got Rand Paul and Thomas Massie and so many other people who do not want us to get into yet another Bush-like conflict in the Middle East. And they are going to war with each other, calling each other everything but a child of God. And what Bannon is saying here is that Mark Levin, he calls him Tel Aviv Levin, because Levin is an Israel first guy. He won't admit to that. He's got a show, I think it's on the weekends on Fox News. And Tucker Carlson can't stand him, and he can't stand Tucker Carlson either. But he is an Israel first guy. He is always in defense of Israel. Above all, he's Jewish, of course. And Mark Levin is apparently quite disappointed that we have a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, and that's what Bannon is poking him on. I got some advice for Mark Levin. If you love Israel so much, why don't you move there, buddy? I'd say that to anybody. If all you can do, if you're an American, and all you can do is talk about your love for Italy 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, well, hell, why don't you move to Italy? If you love it that much, can you not say something about the country you live in now? Don't you love your own country? I love America. I don't want to move anywhere else. Maybe I'd have to one day. I don't know, but I don't want to move anywhere else. I was born here. I want to live here. That's why I'm here. But Mark Levin just can't stop just gushing his affection for Israel. Well, Mark, move there, buddy. If that's what you want, move to Tel Aviv. If you think it's so great, just go. Now, what's happening here is, as you probably know, Donald Trump is very angry with Benjamin Netanyahu. The reason he's angry with him is because he worked over the weekend. Today is Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. He worked hard over the weekend, his administration did, to carve out a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. I got a lot to talk about today, folks, so please hang in there with me if you will. You can speed the video up if you need to, or watch a little and come back and finish it later. Whatever works for you, whatever you want to do. I appreciate you being here, but I got a lot to talk about. But Donald Trump's the Trump administration worked hard over the weekend to broker a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, which is a very good thing, I maintain. I am in that anti-war wing of the Republican Party, folks. I'm aligned with the Bannons and the Carlsons of the world. I don't want any war over there. I don't want us getting involved anymore with any of these Bush-style forever wars in the Middle East that have nothing to do with the safety and security of the United States, for heaven's sakes. Whatever problems Israel has with Iran, let Israel and Iran fight it out or work it out or negotiate or whatever. Let them handle it. That's my only argument. But Donald Trump has been angry with Benjamin Netanyahu. I played a clip on my show yesterday that demonstrated that. He's kind of angry with both parties, quite frankly, but he's really angry with Netanyahu. And the reason he's angry with him is because after they brokered this ceasefire deal, Netanyahu goes and drops a pantload of bombs in Iran. Trump said, it's like he described it as Israel dropping all these bombs on Iran, bombs like I've never seen before. I've never seen so many bombs. And because of that, he was angry with Netanyahu because he did this after the ceasefire was brokered. Now, Iran then reciprocated, which you might expect. I don't justify that either. Look, I don't have a dog in this hunt. I'm not in love with Iran or Israel, either one. I don't want us involved unless we can play the role of peacemaker, which Trump was trying to do, obviously. So Iran then attacked our interest in Qatar, but apparently there was nothing to come of it. I'm not excusing them either, by the way. But Trump was really angry with Netanyahu. From everything I've read a lot of reports that he has been really mad at the Israeli Prime Minister who dropped these bombs after the ceasefire had been brokered. So I've got a little advice for you, Mr. President, how you can keep Netanyahu in line. This just occurred to me this morning. This is a great idea. This is how you keep Israel in line. This is how you keep Netanyahu in line. Cut off their allowance. If you've got an unruly kid at your house and you give them an allowance every week, maybe they're a teenager and you give them X number of dollars every week because they don't have time to go and work a job or whatever. They do their chores around home. I don't know if that still happens or not. But if they're misbehaving, one thing you can do is economic sanctions, right? Cut off the money. Well, Trump could cut off the money. He's not going to do that, of course. We give them billions and billions of dollars. But what Trump could say is, you're going to honor the terms of this ceasefire and you're going to knock it off or the gravy train is over. That's what he could say. That's what he should say. That's what he should say, not just to Israel, but anybody else for that matter. I am completely and totally opposed to foreign aid, particularly when we don't have the money, folks. Do I have to keep hammering home the fact that we are $37 trillion in debt? How on earth can we keep writing checks all over the world when there ain't no money in the bank? I can't do that. I can't go to a merchant today and write a check for $1,000 if I've only got $900 in my bank account, for heaven's sakes. Who doesn't understand that? I mean, the bank might say, hey, we got a little problem here. We're gonna cover this for you because we know you're a regular depositor and all that. But, you know, if you just keep doing that, sooner or later the bank is going to call you and say, enough of this, buddy. We're not doing this anymore. All right, so Tel Aviv Levin, that's what Bannon is calling him now. Tel Aviv. They're just really going back and forth. Loomer and Carlson. Carlson not so much. Tucker Carlson. But Bannon and Levin and all these people on either side of this issue that are under the Republican umbrella, they're really going at each other on social media. It's a thing to behold. But I am no fan of Mark Levin. I've told you before, I can't stand his voice. This is how he sounds, like nails on a chalkboard. And I can't take it. Even if I agreed with him, I can't take his delivery. It's just, it's awful. He may say the same of me. I don't know. I'm fair game. All right, let me move on to NATO. Trump is in, I should have written it down. I forget where he is, but there's a big NATO confab today, Wednesday, that Trump is attending, of course. And guess who's there? Guess who's at the big NATO summit? That's right. It's the little pervert, comedian, dictator, actor, Volodymyr Zelensky. He's at the NATO summit. Now, I've got one simple question to ask. Why is he there? Why is Zelensky at the NATO summit? Who's who's leading Cuba now? I started to say Castro, but the Castros are gone. But if Fidel was still there, I mean, how would you feel if Fidel Castro was at the NATO summit? You'd say, well, what are you doing here? I don't remember who all is in NATO, but I know Ukraine ain't. And this, of course, has been a big sticking point since all of these hostilities began. But Zelensky is there. Now, he is there, of course, to meet with Donald Trump. And here again, this is another example. First you get Netanyahu, and now you got Zelensky. This is another example of where Trump should just say to him, the gravy train's over, you're not getting in. I don't know that we're sending them any more money. But Zelensky's got no business being at NATO. This sends a bad message to Vladimir Putin. NATO and Ukraine is a sticking point, particularly for Putin, and you can understand why that is, folks. Ukraine and Russia, of course, are border countries, and Putin had been promised by a series of American presidents that NATO was not going to expand eastward anymore toward the Russian border, and we lied. Bush lied, Clinton lied, Obama lied, and they just kept expanding NATO toward Russia until that was part of the reason why Putin finally had to act. It's like, as I've said, it's like China setting up shop in Mexico and Canada. How would you like that if you're an American? We wouldn't stand for that, or we shouldn't stand for that. I mean, that you can't live like that with your virtual enemies on your doorstep. So the bottom line is, folks, number one, Zelensky's got no business being at the NATO summit. Trump's got no business even entertaining this clown, literally, this clown. But the bigger question for me is, why is there a NATO? Why does it even exist? How can NATO in 2025 still be relevant? Now, NATO was formed, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It was formed post-war in 1949, primarily for the collective defense and to ensure the security and stability of the North Atlantic region following the devastation of the Second World War. And the reason it was established, number one, is because there were tensions between the Western Allies and the then Soviet Union, which morphed into the Cold War. And the Western nations were concerned about communism and Soviet expansion of same in Europe, as they should have been. That it was valid. But folks, everything has changed. Now, Europe is in disarray, as we know, but it's not because of Russia. In 1991, the Soviet Union fell, and it fell because of godless communism. They were bankrupt, and it just fell. It fell apart. And from the ashes of the communistic Soviet Union, the nation of Russia was reborn, not a communist nation. A nation with whom we should have established peaceable ties with in 1991. The Cold War was over. It was a glorious day. I will remember it. It was at the beginning of Papa Bush's administration, and we had the perfect chance to hit the reset button and be friendly now with the reborn nation of Russia and establish trade with them and friendly ties. There was no reason not to do that. We had won the Cold War. It was over. The communistic Soviet Union was no more. It was in the dustbin of history. But instead, what did the United States government do? We just kept conducting ourselves as if the Cold War was still in effect up until this very moment. We still maintained a war footing or a war-like footing with Russia when there was no need to do this, folks. There's no reason we could not have established friendly relations, which would have been better for our country, their country, and of course the entire world. What a missed opportunity this was. What a terribly missed opportunity. We would all be so much better off. And now look at where we are today. Conflicts all over the world. We have driven Russia closer to China now of our own doing. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. It never should have happened. It was completely irresponsible. We just have the knack for creating monsters where there are none. We do it all the time. We did it in Iraq. And of course, we must view Russia in the lens of the old Soviet Union. We can't see it any other way. We just got blinders on. I mean, the American government is by and large still made up of people, Republican and Democrat, who are guided by this philosophy that we are still in the Cold War and Russia is still the old communistic Soviet Union and we can't see things any other possible way. They were raised under the real threat. I'm not denying that. So many of these people, many of them baby boomers, were raised under the threat of nuclear war with Russia. Some of them remember the exercises they had to go to in school, the drills, in the event of a nuclear exchange, and they just can't shake that mentality, apparently. They just can't stop for a moment to consider that things aren't like that anymore. So our political philosophy just doesn't change, and we just further ostracize ourselves from Russia when it could be so different. It's such a shame. All right, let me move on. I got a few more things I want to talk about here. I have to confess something I did this morning that you may not approve of. Nobody would probably approve of this, and I completely understand. And I can't really give you a valid reason why I did this. I was sitting, I'm not very mobile these days. I was sitting in my recliner, and I was on my laptop panning for gold, as I do every day, so that I have some content to share with you. You know, I'm looking through the news and seeing what's going on. And I was on YouTube, and I enjoy the occasional Joe Rogan podcast. I think Rogan is extremely popular. I think he has something like 7 million subscribers or something. That's where I'm trying to get to. I want to get 8 million. I want to surpass him. So y'all get after it. But the appeal of Rogan is that he'll have anybody on his show, and it's just, the appeal of Rogan is it's just conversational, you know? It's just Rogan and somebody else sitting across a table from him, just having a conversation, and it could be anybody from any walk of life. But, you know, this is why Kamala Harris did not do his podcast, because she does not have the ability to sit there for 2 or 3 hours and just be conversational. If she doesn't have a coach near her or a cheat sheet near her, this is what I say if I get asked this, then she can't take it. But I really enjoy just the conversational style that Rogan has with all of his guests. They'll just sit there for 2 or 3 hours with no breaks, unless they have to take a potty break or something. They'll talk about whatever. It's really a great way to do it, and it's not like there's no constraints of television. There's no agenda. There's no time limit. It's just people talking, and it's got great appeal. But his latest guest was on. He put up the latest show on YouTube this morning, or somebody did. I guess he did. And his latest guest was Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders! Now, in my defense, I didn't watch the whole thing, but I did watch a lot of it. I watched most of it. And you might be saying, how on earth could you sit there and listen to Bernie Sanders, this commie pinko socialist? He at least bills himself as a democratic socialist, and now, of course, he's in the independent party. But he caucuses with the Democrats, of course. Bernie Sanders is 83 years old now. The reason I watched it, I guess, I like Rogan. All I can tell you is I started watching it because it's almost like watching a train wreck. You just can't look away. You got to see what's going on. That's the best explanation I've got. But the reason I bring this up and the point that I want to make is that, Rogan covers a wide swath of topics during this wide-ranging interview. I think this one went about 2 hours. And they talked about every issue you can imagine. But no matter what they talked about, whether it was poverty or war or education or climate change or election reform, or no matter what they talked about, every answer that Bernie Sanders had and has for every problem that Rogan broached on this particular podcast was the same. Every single answer was the same. He wouldn't put it this way, but I'm telling you, when you boil it all down, when you distill it all down, every single answer to any problem or issue we face as Americans is the same. And that answer is more government. That's the answer. No matter what the problem is, the solution is more government. If we need better education, then we need free education. And Sanders is telling Rogan, he's naming off all these countries where the education for every child from grade 1 all the way through college is free. It's just irritating that Rogan, who is a bright guy, doesn't call Bernie out on this nonsense, because he is a bright guy. He also is a former Bernie Sanders voter, I have to tell you. Education isn't free. Somebody's paying. Nothing's free. Somebody's paying for everything. And of course, no matter what our problems are, the answer is always more government and more taxation. And Bernie was proposing that we tax the billionaires. He doesn't talk so much about millionaires anymore. Now he's on to billionaires. You know why he doesn't talk about millionaires? Anybody want to take a guess? Yeah, you got it. Because he is one. Interesting. He's never held a job in his cotton-picking life. He has enriched himself as a politician. How typical that is. I mean, he's got multiple homes. He's got millions of dollars. But now he's after billionaires and how they need to pay their fair share, And Rogan, to his credit, asked him, well, how much should they be paying? Because in the late 1950s, the top rate was 90%. Do you think they should be paying 90%? No, I'm not saying 90%. And then he went on to contradict himself. That's exactly what he was saying, 90%. Now, folks, my question, how I was sitting there just, how I wish I could have been sitting in Joe Rogan's chair so I could conduct the interview. The question I would ask Bernie Sanders or any Democrat is simply this. Can you give me one example of anything that government makes better? When it gets involved, does government make education better? Does government economic policy make economics better? Does it cure inflation? Does it lift people out of poverty? The government solutions for same? Is there anything in our lives that government makes better? If we only had, what American says, we've got this problem, that problem, and the other problem. If only we had more government. Does anybody say that? Nobody with any sense. The Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes of the world are certainly saying that. The Ilhan Omars of the world are certainly saying that. More about her in a moment. All the Democrats would say that, of course. All we need is more government. Well, folks, government is what has us in the messes we're in now. What we need is less government. More government got us $37 trillion in debt. More government gave us perpetual war all over the world. And on and on and on it goes. More government gives us the dumbest kids in the world. Because we think if we want our kids to excel in education, what we need is more government. No, you need less government. What you need is more mamas and daddies getting involved in the education of their children. But I just wanted to point that out. This guy is a broken record. He has never changed his tune. Bernie the commie, I call him. He's at least a socialist. I don't know what the big difference is anyway. To everything that ails us, Bernie Sanders' solution is more government. As Ronald Reagan famously and correctly said, to people who say what we need is more government, he said government is the problem. And you were right, Dutch. You were right. Okay, let me move on. Last night, as those of you who are keeping up with the news know, last night there was an election. There were a lot of elections around the country, primary elections. And there was a primary election for the mayor of New York City last night. And in the Democratic, it was one of these ranked choice voting, which I hate. They have that in Alaska. I think they got rid of it. But anyway, as you've undoubtedly heard by now, the former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, was running to become the mayor of New York City. Now, the current mayor of New York City is Eric Adams. He was a Democrat, but Eric Adams eventually aligned himself with President Trump with particular regard to the issue of illegal immigration, and he began to cooperate with ICE and the Trump administration, and for that he was pretty much ostracized by the powers that be in the Democratic Party, causing Mayor Adams, to leave the Democratic Party and become an independent. Politically, he is in the Independent Party now. He's still the mayor, but he's up for re-election. So in the primary, in the Democratic primary, the top two candidates were Cuomo, who was expected by every poll that I saw to win, but the other candidate was Zoran Mamdani. And Zoran Mamdani won the primary last night, effectively ending the political career of Andrew Cuomo. Now, Cuomo himself would have been really bad. Mamdani is probably going to be bad on crack. Let me tell you a little bit about this guy. Zoran Mamdani is 33 years old. He bills himself as a democratic socialist like Bernie Sanders. He was born in Uganda in 1991, I believe it was. He's 33 years old. At the age of 7, he moved from from Uganda to New York City. And he is now the Democratic winner of the primary. And he will go on to the general election where he is going to face Mayor Eric Adams. And there's a couple of other minor candidates in that race, including Curtis Sliwa, who's running on the Republican ticket, and there's one more candidate whose name escapes me. But this is where we are, folks. And it is going to take, I'm not all that impressed with Mayor Eric Adams, but given the choices before us, I think it's going to take a highly concerted effort from the White House on down to get Eric Adams back into the mayor's seat in New York City. Because if Mamdani wins the mayor's race in New York City, an avowed Democrat, socialist, Muslim, then what we've got in New York City basically is London all over again. One of the great cities, historically great cities of the world, is just going to become London. And you know what's happened to London with their Islamic mayor. My idea about people running for political office in the United States is very simple. We need to have a more defined criteria with regard to qualifications for running for political office in the United States, particularly in federal elections or in state elections. And my idea that anybody who's running for political office in the United States should be required to at least take a basic civics test. Because I maintain that if everybody had to take a basic civics test, that would eliminate people like Ilhan Omar from serving in Congress, and AOC and others. Al Green, who's always calling for Trump's impeachment. By the way, I don't have that in my list of notes, but that got shot down over the weekend. Only 70-something. Al Green, Al Green, the representative from Texas who got hauled out of the House chamber at the last State of the Union address for his disruptive behavior. They removed him from the chamber, and he had called for the impeachment of Trump. That finally came to a vote on the House floor yesterday, and it was defeated with only about 70 Democrats voting for it. So right now, I think it's probably dead in the water. But again, as I said 2 or 3 days ago, if the Democrats take the House in next year, all bets are off, folks. But if we had to have a civics test, then I don't think people like Zoran Mamdani would have a chance of winning political office. I confess that it bothers me that a Muslim would become the mayor of New York City. I'm not saying everybody's got to be a Christian. I don't know what Eric Adams is. I know Cuomo was a Roman Catholic. I know that, what was the guy? His name escapes me. There's been 2 or 3 recent mayors who are Jewish. It's not uncommon to have a Jewish mayor in New York. But you got to be a little wary when you're putting Muslims in America in office because, let's face it, folks. We've been attacked by Muslims in this country, and we have record of... I'm not saying every Muslim around the world is not peace-loving. Maybe some are. But there's so many Muslims in the world who chant death to America. If they don't chant it, that's how they feel. That gives me a little bit of a pause as an American. I'm sorry, but it just does. But here we go. If I don't know what's going to happen here, but I think that Eric Adams is in a weak position, not being aligned with a major party now. I'm just saying I think that some Republicans are going to have to coalesce behind Adams. Of course, it's New York City. The Democrat always has the advantage, but we do not need this guy in office. Eric Adams is not ideal by a long shot, but he's a hell of a lot better, preferable to Zoran Mamdani. So I don't know what's going to happen. Okay, I got to update you on Thomas Massie, who tweeted this just a few minutes ago on Twitter, on X. As you know, Trump went on a tirade over the weekend at Thomas Massie. It was uncalled for. I berated the president for doing this. He is wrong to do this. And it just really grinds my gears that he would do this. And Trump pledged to do everything in his power to unseat Thomas Massie in the next elections in the next congressional elections. So Thomas Massie used the attack to make a plea for donations, and as I told you, I donated to the Massie re-election campaign. I encouraged all of you to do the same if you're so inclined. But this is what he tweeted a couple of hours ago before I started filming. Fundraising total this week, 1,776 donors, how about that, 1776, have given $154,686. We have cash on hand at $1.485 million. We're going to need it since the D.C. campaign cronies just announced a super PAC to defeat me. This was posted from Axios. Trump's team has launched Kentucky MAGA, a super PAC devoted to defeating Thomas Massie in the May 2026 primary. The organization will be run by Trump's senior political advisors, Tony Fabrizio and Chris LaCivita. LaCivita said the PAC would spend whatever it takes to defeat Massie. This is so upsetting to me. And I said the other day, and I'll say it again, Donald Trump deserves a black eye for his behavior toward Thomas Massie, this good and decent, small government, limited government man, fiscal conservative, anti-war representative from Kentucky. The 4th District, his constituents love him. But this is probably the stiffest competition he's ever had with the Trump White House having him in their sights, in their targets, as Trump has said. And they're going to be raising millions of dollars to defeat this one congressional candidate who is a Republican. Folks, wouldn't it be great if Trump went after every Democrat the way he's gone after this good and decent Republican man? Why doesn't he go after Democrats the way he goes after Thomas Massie? Or why doesn't he go after Lindsey Graham the way he went after Thomas Massie? Instead, he endorses him. Why can't you go after Democrats with this kind of commitment or this kind of outrage that you have for Thomas Massie, for heaven's sakes? Donald Trump at times acts like a child. It's as simple as that. He's aggravated with Massie because Massie refuses to support the big, beautiful bill, which only spends more money, changes nothing. It's just full of pork. And Massie is right to oppose it. And for that, Trump wants to get him out of office. It's just ridiculous. All right, folks. One more thing I want to get to. And I want to start by showing you this video. Watch this.
Thank you for your long service to our country. I know that you've served under many Democrats, Republicans. You've always been nonpartisan and done your job to put our country first, and we appreciate your steadfast leadership. And if you are not reappointed, it will be very missed here. I have some concerns when I think about, I know you've touched on this a little bit through the questions today, but around the independence of the federal.
Okay, that clip was of the congressional representative from the 7th District of Colorado. This woman's name is Brittany, it's either Peterson or Pedersen. It's Peterson with 2 T's. A Democrat, Brittany Pedersen, I'll say. And she is, you see her in that video, she's on a House committee, and before them is the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jerome Powell, and she is questioning Jerome Powell when it's time for her 5, 6, or 7 minutes or whatever it is. Is there anything you saw about that video that bothers you? There certainly is for me. Brittany Peterson is a mother of 2 children, one of whom you see there on her lap while she's questioning Jerome Powell. Does that bother any of you? Folks, I got to tell you, it bothers me to no end. Now, I'm going to have to confess to you, as you probably know, I'm a fairly old-fashioned guy. I'm a fairly traditional guy. I'm not a Neanderthal. I don't pull my wife around by her hair. And I'm not saying men can't do some of the traditional roles of women in a house and vice versa, and women shouldn't work outside the home. I'm not saying any of that. But neither am I Phil Donahue, neither am I Alan Alda, neither am I Oprah Winfrey. Men are men, women are women, and they are not the same. And I believe there is no greater calling for a woman than to be a mother, for heaven's sakes. What's more important than raising children? It's an honorable thing. I was raised in a traditional household. My father worked, and my mother was a homemaker, and she kept the home and she raised children. And I believe that is the ideal paradigm for the American household. Now, I understand today life in America often requires both. If you have a husband and a wife, life in America and economics of the times requires both of them to work. It's kind of a vicious cycle because you may have a husband and a wife and they have a couple of kids, but they both have to work, so they have to put kids in a daycare. And I can't stand daycares. They're just germ factories. But ideally, in Tim's traditional world here, if you have a husband and a wife, ideally, you would have a husband working and a wife at home to create, and they would start a family, and she would be a homemaker and a mother to the children. Ideally, I know that that's not always the case anymore. I get it. I'm down with the times. I know how things are right now. Whatever the case, this is uncalled for, folks. I'm sorry, but I cannot accept this. I have never in my life, I'd be surprised if this has ever happened in Congress, where a member of Congress who happens to be a wife and mother is sitting there on the dais asking questions of the Federal Reserve Chairman while bouncing her baby boy on her knee. Are you kidding me right now? You might say in her defense, well, what's she supposed to do? I mean, maybe she didn't have anybody to keep the little darling. Okay, well, here's what I found out. First of all, I would reject that out of hand anyway. She's got staffers in her office. These people all have 15 to 20 staff members. Brittany Peterson is married. Her husband's name is Ian, and Ian is the executive director of Progress Now. He works in the Colorado governor's mansion. So I am left to assume that Ian is back in Colorado working, and Brittany is in D.C. with at least one of her children. I don't know where the other child is. Folks, this is not ideal. I'm sorry. If you are a parent, you've got to consider your children and what's best for your children. This ain't best for your child. If you have children and you're a member of Congress, bringing your child, your baby, onto the House, into a House committee room, and bouncing that child on your knee while you're trying to serve your constituents, that ain't what's best for your constituents, and it sure as hell ain't what's best for that child. Now, I did a little digging, and I found out that there is a place called the House of Representative Child Care Centers, better known as the HRCCC. It has been providing full-day, year-round quality child care for children of the House community and other federal employees since 1987. So, Brittany, darling, if you're a member of Congress and you just have to bring your child into the House chamber or into the Capitol, maybe you're not aware that just down the hall on the right over there, there's a child care center. And as much as I hate for you to put a child in a child care center, if you're going to go to Congress and you've got a child and you've got nobody to keep that child, that's what the child care center is for. But I got to tell you, I got a problem with Brittany or anybody else bringing a child, one of their children, into a House committee room where they're trying to work. That's ridiculous. That's simply uncalled for, and it should not happen. Now, I don't know how much money Ian makes. I'm assuming he makes pretty good money because he's working in the governor's mansion. Don't you think it would be better if Ian and Brittany had sat down at the dinner table and said, okay, let's discuss what's best for our family and what's best for our two children? Is the best thing for your two children, is the best thing for them for you to stay here in Denver and work, and I'll go to Washington, D.C., and I'll work in Washington, D.C., and I'll take at least one of the children with me, and it's no big deal. I'll just take them into the committee room with me and bounce them on my knee while I'm doing it. If I were a constituent of this woman, I would be hopping mad on my one good leg. The conversation should have gone thusly. I've got a job at the governor's mansion. We've got these two children. I think the best thing for us to do is for you to stay at home here in Denver, and I'll go and work, and you can raise our children. Or is that just sexist or over the top, or am I just not down with the time? And am I just not hip to what's happening? Maybe that's what it is. That's how my conversation would go. It's as simple as that. All right, folks, that's it. Look, a lot going on. Give me your comments down below if you would, please. Love to hear from you. Thank you for the emails. Buy me a coffee, all that jazz. Remember, check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you like the video, share it far and wide. Thanks so much for being with me, and I will see you soon.